studies, contemporary cultural studies in 1964. So the very reason that the possibility that we are discussing about popular culture today is thanks to people like Stuart Hall, Richard Hoggett, E.P. Thompson, who set up the center in Birmingham University in 1964, and sadly it was closed in 2002. But all those 35 years, 36 years of work that they did, what laid the foundation for what we are discussing today, which made this discussion or even taking up popular culture as a research topic was made possible because of these stalwarts in cultural studies. So we have to go back to Raymond Williams, keep on going back to Raymond Williams to understand culture in all its multiplicities, in all its various perspectives. So coming back to what I started the session with, popular and culture. So culture was something, we've always identified culture with something we aspire for. You go to a high cultured space, behave like a cultured person. So these are the terms and phrases we keep often hearing. So when we look at popular culture, it almost sounds for a 19th century probably looked like an oxymoronic term. So popular combining with culture. So anything that was popular cannot be culture. So what Raymond Williams underlined, or what, from a Marxist perspective, what he found was that who decided what was culture? It's the elitist who decided what was culture. It's the upper class men who had the privilege of sitting in an ivory tower, not being bothered about anything else that was happening around them. They were the people who decided what was high culture or what was low brow culture, high brow culture. So this is what set the ball into motion, and slowly they started understanding anything can be read as a cultural text. So that's what Cultural Studies Department, which was set up in Birmingham University, did. So it almost, it's been more than 4 or 5 decades since this whole cultural center was set up. So where did popular culture, the divide between this high and low, and one of the outcomes or one of the corollary of Raymond Williams' idea of culture, or when he started discussing culture extensively, is that we began to realize that this divide between popular and culture was not a natural one, but was a constructed one. So this is not something that comes naturally, as Arnold believed or Lewis believed. It is something that was done with what Gramsci would call as the hegemonic dynamics. So we just accepted something as high culture, we accepted something as low culture. So this was the first and foremost thing that we need to know about popular culture. So when somebody tells you can't work on that in your research, when somebody tells you, oh, that is just popular culture, pulp fiction, you cannot work on that. So this is exactly the question we need to ask. Okay, who decides this is not something worth working on? I remember, to give my own example, in PG, we have to do a project paper for post-graduation. I was so enamored by Daphne du Maurier's novels. So I used all these historical romances. I wanted to work on it, but my supervisor wouldn't allow it. She said, no, that is not, that is all pulp fiction and you cannot work on it. So I think after I started reading, of course, I had to give up because she wouldn't approve of it. But today we don't have to worry about that because we have an entire dedicated study for popular culture. So coming back to Raymond Williams, another important, when we talk about popular culture, we also associate it with the culture of the masses, right? So mass culture. And of course, there is John Story is one of the proponents in popular culture studies, very important scholar. You have to read him. You have to read his work. He talks about how mass culture and popular culture have a slight variation over there. So mass culture is something that was produced for the masses, and it need not always be part of, or need not always be popular culture, right? So in fact, Theodore Adorno, this cultural theorist, he had such derision for mass culture, and he often associated it with Americanization. So he looked at so mass culture is equal to commercialization. So popular culture need not always be equated with commercialization. So that's what I'm trying to say. So something, if some mass culture need not necessarily mean that it's all popular culture need not be mass culture, is what I'm saying. But Raymond Williams talks about this idea of masses. So he makes this very interesting and important statement that we need to take it as like a verse from the Bible. He says, there are no masses, only ways of seeing people as masses. So this is a very important statement made by Raymond Williams, which I would say forms the entire foundation for popular studies, because it dismantles the whole system of study which operated upon our thinking that there's only certain elitist views should be accepted for research or in any field of study for that matter. Right? So this dismantles. So there is nothing called mass. There's only ways of seeing masses. Right? So this opposition between popular and culture is what we are trying to dismantle when we do research in popular culture. So it's not like the twain shall not meet. The thing is that they've always existed together, or another way of putting that is we need to problematize that rather. So it's not as simple or as ordinary it appears to be. So, and it's culture is also one of the, Raymond Williams himself says, it's one of the complicated words in English language, because there is an ambiguity to it really. On the one hand, it talks about artistic excellence. On the other hand, it's a very complicated term. It's something that refines, it's something that acquires, right? So the idea of arriving or the idea of approaching culture itself is fraught with so much of complexities. Because culture is not something that you reach towards. Culture is not something that you always interrogate, because as somebody said, it's the very water in which we swim. So culture is the very base on which we swim, or to put it in simple words, this is in anything and everything is culture. So it's not something out there, it's within you and around you, and you are surrounded by it. So this was the greatest revelation that was told about culture after the institution of the cultural study. So anything. So Stuart Blackburn, again a cultural studies theorist, talks about how any act in a community can become a text, right? Any sort of action. Somebody wearing a bindi, for example, and walking on the road, that becomes a text. And somebody telling us not to eat something in the name of religion or in the name of maintaining your figure, particularly to women, it becomes a text, right? Because there is any action in a society is always written with a certain textual quality to it. So this is the second thing that we learn about culture. So culture is not something that you aspire for. Culture is also a text. You read culture just like how you read a book. You read culture like a text. And popular culture is one of the points through which you can approach this text called culture, right? So so how do we approach this popular culture? So first and foremost, what qualifies as popular culture? To put it in very simple terms, there's no simple way to define it, but a very layman's understanding would be something that is liked by many people is popular culture, right? So like going to a mall, or going to tea shop, or enjoying food, or watching a film. So they're all, or watching an IPL match. So all these are texts, right? They're something that is widely liked by many people. So if you, based on the popularity and quality of an action, it's a very simple, absolutely no complication involved in that. But it's not as simple as that, because the second way of looking at popular culture is that because Raymond Williams also talks about culture in another context. He says, now culture is not a continuum. In any epoch of time, in any pocket of time, if you take, there is always a dominant culture, a residual culture, and an emergent culture. Even when we're living right now in 2026, there is something called a dominant culture where we all have to follow through. And there is a residual culture, maybe a culture which was part of the bygone era, or something which is not acceptable in this era, right? And a new culture which is emerging. So it is not it's not very easy to define the term culture as such, right? So the second way of arriving at or approaching popular studies is what we call as the residual culture. So see, whatever is left over. So in another context, what we discount as high culture, whatever is left over is known as popular culture. This is one way of defining. And then but it has got a lot of condescension built into it, right? So we look at it as though it's fine, you have this culture, but it's like saying, but not as high as what it is, right? So you try to project certain activities as very highbrow culture. For example, wine tasting. Like if you look at those pictures, or if you know, wine tasting is projected as a part of a very high culture, whereas sipping a beer in a bar is looked at as very low culture, right? And then there is this third point to this popular culture is this mass culture, as I mentioned earlier, something which has got a commercial value, right? And which was what was looked upon by this Frankfurt School of Theorists, like your Theodor Adorno, with such derision, really, because they were dead against it, and they said it was entirely commercial, everything is money and all materialistic. So this is what they had spoken against, or had such derision against it. But there is also another way of looking at popular culture. We can, if you take away all these dimensions from it, it is also a very interesting site, and it is a contested site, really. It's a site that it tries to grab your attention for meaning and value, really, right? So this is exactly where Stuart Hall and others set up cultural studies, because it's such a fertile state, or a fertile field for looking at or arriving at understanding our society and how does this make meaning, right? So where does this contestation arrive? So on the one hand, we have this so-called high literature. So when you approach, as research scholars, most research scholars are here, PG students are here. So you'd always have a dilemma. So what do I take as a subject matter for my study? What qualifies as literature? So we should begin from there. The state of contestation begins from there. What qualifies as a canonical literature, for example? So what is so immediately your teachers would tell you it's something that endures, something that stands the test of time, something that is very canonical, right? How do we build this canon? For example, Pramod K. Nair in his book, and even John Story in his books talks about Shakespeare, for example, is a canonical writer. But if you look at Shakespeare in his age, he was only a popular artist. He brought in people to his stage, and nobody in his age would have accepted him as a classicist, or nobody would have accepted him as a highbrow artist at all. He wrote for money, and he made no bones about it, really. And he brought people into the theatre. So he was a popular artist of that time. But slowly he transformed, or rather he was transformed into this this so-called canon. So today, people would ask, if you're an exponent, are you Shakespeare? So that's how they ask you that. That is high. Or even Dickens, for example. Dickens was, in his age, apparently was dismissed as a popular writer by the literary critics of his age. Much like Shakespeare. Shakespeare was dismissed by Rymer and other critics. Same case with Dickens and many such writers as well. So how do they? So what was once popular, and suddenly it becomes literary, a high art, as we call it. So that is why. So who decides this? That's the whole point of understanding this whole contested area of this study called popular literature. So there is, like, how do we make them canonical? By building these binaries around it. Okay, there is something called good, literature and something called bad literature, high literature and low literature. So we build these binaries around the literature, right? Whereas we look at great works of art as a product of some sort of a genius, individual genius, possessing some innate or aesthetic value. On the other hand, all your popular fiction is dismissed aside. Okay, they're just formulaic, they're commercial and they're made for money, and they don't stay. They're temporary. They can be disposed. They're easily disposable. So the job of popular cultural studies exponents and the popular culture theories is that to look at these binaries not as something innate but as something that was constructed. They're ideological and they're not natural, right? So it is ideological because all the ideological apparatus, as Louis Althusser talks about in his works, all the ideological apparatus are in play to decide what qualifies as good art. So why is a Sidney Sheldon not studied, or why is a P.G. Wodehouse not worthy of literary research? Why is a Chetan Bhagat not? I think Pramod K. Nair talks about how Shakespeare was the Chetan Bhagat of his time. That's how he says in one of his lectures. So it is just dismissed as offering some sort of a mere entertainment, right? So they and mostly these ideas were constructed from the 19th century, from the Enlightenment period onwards, because they felt that it went against the grain of what Enlightenment tried to do, to make humanity better, to make them to put the power in the hands of educated elite. So you had a non-literate mass on the educated elite. So it was this tug of war, this opposition is what did this cultural, say it's the educated elite who did the cultural work and not the masses. So this was the mostly it was this sort of, if you look at 18th century, or even Jerome K. Jerome in his, I don't know if you're familiar with him, he's such a brilliant humorist. In one of his essays, he talks about how it's about love. It's an essay about love, how he talks about these women read all these romance novels. And imagine this is in the later half of the 19th century. And women read all these romance novels and they expect their men to be like this. And I was so surprised. I was teaching this in class, and I was recently reading an article which said that more and more women are actually now getting into queer fiction, where queer men, where queer men in love, because that's the only form of masculinity which is appealing to them, right? And things have not changed in all these 200 years at all. So it is such an interesting idea. So they all these things were serialized. They were all these periodical press. They started publishing these works, all these what they call as penny books. So when they were sensational work, they were commercial, and this is how they were dismissed by even Dickens's work was in fact serialized. So they were all dismissed as this lowbrow work. And then when we come to slowly, when we come to 20th century, the cinema and radio sort of replaced these books. So anything that was published, all the movies and all the movies and radio, and today we have to include the streaming, all the fan culture. This is what is known as the culture industry, as Adorno called it, and I would say they have overtaken the so-called highbrow culture, or the elitist culture, I would say, sort of overtaking it, and the lines are becoming blurred now. The borders are becoming porous. Dr. Bangaru Alamelu said in the beginning, the borders are becoming porous now. So what we consume, so there is nothing called high literary art or a low literary art anymore. So the line has become very thin now, and each generation seemed to be redrawing it. So what was yesterday's disposed entertainment becomes tomorrow's canon. So, for example, if you look at the recent passing away of the Tamil director and actor Bhagiraj, I remember most of them did not, when his films came out, his films were not really considered as of great cinematic quality or a great quality. But today he's celebrated as one of the greatest screenplay writers of all time. So we are seeing that in action, really, right? So what was once considered to be trash, or what was once considered to be something just sensational or just titillated you, becomes canon then, canon in the next generation. So this is the sort of movement, dynamic movement that we see happening in popular culture studies. So popular culture studies aim is to study how each generation looks at or approaches popular culture and how it consumes it, and what or who decides what is high culture and what is low culture for a period, and they study it through a very critical lens, right? When we look at it, there is this book by Abhin Chakravarti. It's an introduction to popular studies, and he looks at it from an Indian perspective. So he looks at all these theoretical viewpoints, and he looks at popular culture through the lens of post-colonial, psychoanalysis, structuralism, post-structuralism, the recent Think theory, quite a lot of theories, and how we look at popular culture through this lens. It's a very interesting textbook, and students will find it very, very helpful. So how do we approach it? Because unlike how do we read them? So we read any popular, as I said earlier, any event or any activity become a text. So we look at all that is happening around us, and we look at it with a critical lens. So you can take ads, for example. So till this day, however women have progressed, if you look at ads for breakfast cereals or toilet cleaners, we still see women doing it. So what does it say? If you look at it, we consume all these ads, most of them still have women as the main protagonist of these advertisements. So you take this as a text, and you look at it from a feminist lens, right? And you take ads, and you take serials, you take movies, and at every generation, at every point in time, you take them and try to analyze them from instead of restricting your views, critical viewpoints, to simply these highbrow literary texts, you take them to any text that is available to you. Now, series on OTT platforms. So there are many research departments across the world where more and more people are working on series now rather than textbooks. So Netflix, the series that are very popular on Netflix and other platforms, they are being taken up for research. So that actually shows a great paradigmic shift in humanities departments itself. So many are looking at superhero stories that are serialized in these OTT platforms. So you have neo-mythological stories or fantasy that is being, for example, Game of Thrones. Quite a lot of research papers on Game of Thrones, and all these women-oriented series that are popularized, or romance in a very new take on romances. So they're all new emerging areas. Now, and all this was possible because of the cultural studies department that was set up, because now we're able to look at anything that happens around us as a text. So what we've come to realize is that culture is not something that is divorced from what is happening around you. It's not something you aspire to. It's not an abstract idea. So bringing culture from its abstract to the concrete reality or concrete act is what popular studies as a field or a discipline has achieved over the course of this time. So as a result of which, we are now able to critically look at ourselves, our life as part of this. So we don't divorce ourselves from what is happening around you, but you are part of popular culture. You are part of that now. So it is something that is not, you are not merely a witness to it, but you are part of it now. This is what Henry Jenkins called as the convergence culture. So a text is no longer simply a text existing in vacuum anymore. because we have all become multimodal persons where we become involved. So that is one of the I should say that is something very different from the way we approach literature or way we approached any text from the past till today. So we interact with the text now. So what's the meaning of multimodal? We no longer consume text just as letters. So we look at images, we look at reels, we look at series, we look at on a daily basis. It's become part of our personality now. So we no longer receive the meeting that is happening. So right now I've got a document open, I'm looking at you on these video screens now. So we have become multimodal persons now. So we are participating in the culture. We are participating in contributing to that popular culture. So this is what, as I said earlier, convergence culture, because fan fiction would come very much, fan fiction would be part of it. So you have a website called Archive of Our Own. I'm sure most of the students would be aware of it, where fans write. It's free, completely free, where you take a piece of fiction, any fiction, that if Twilight, for example, had such great fan fiction that one of the franchisee, I don't know if you're familiar with it, you had an entire story revolving around that reading. So you had, I forget the name of the book now. So it was made into a film franchise as well as a book. So, and she became a millionaire after that. So this fan fiction is what we call as the this convergence culture right now, participatory culture. So which is again a part of this popular culture. So how do we approach literature? I think the path that it is moving forward, I don't think we would have anything, we would not have just literature, but literature would be a compendium of all these things. So you cannot simply call books alone as source of literature, but rather all the movies that you watch, the text that you, everything and anything become text. In any sort of, you can analyze ads, or you can analyze protests that happen on the street, right? Or take the recent case of Tamil Nadu elections. If you look at that, I think, as ma'am mentioned at the beginning, it's more relevant than it ever was today, because we have a whole system of government which has been made possible because of popular culture. So more than ever, this is so relevant today, isn't it? So people are so taken in by it. This is what is called this convergence culture. So we saw a hero on the screen, and that translated into a real life hero for them, right? So as I said, this is what Stuart Hall called as culture as a text. So we are reading it right now. And these are all the directions that popular culture is taking. So what does the future hold for research in popular culture? Like, how do we study them? So that would be the last part of my presentation. So one of the ways is to, I think we need to arrive at a non-conventional form of reading this. So we could no longer look at it as, theme, summary. We cannot look at it anymore like that. But what does it symbolize? So what does a cultural act, or what does a popular act or a mass act in a society symbolize or signify in a culture? What does that movement indicate in a culture? What sort of cultural shifts that happen? I think future research will be based upon that. So of course, all the other viewpoints are still valid, say your psychoanalytical or your feminist, racial, ethnic, post-colonial, all those are still valid. But I think the way we will be approaching it might be slightly, we may not be sticking to the conventional forms anymore. So I think we would be moving forward in a very different direction altogether. I think only time will say that. So with that, I would just like to conclude by saying that it's. I was just trying to touch upon what is popular culture and what is this, where we have reached so far, and I think right now we are in convergence culture. That is the state that we are in right now, and but it's exciting, but At the same time, it can be a little unwielding, meaning to say there is no direction as such to approach this, because it doesn't, um, what shall I say, it doesn't avail itself of a scope to look at it from a very structural perspective, because from a very structural manner, because it defies that. It defies any form of structuralization. So researching in popular studies will be very exciting because it will be discursive, it will be very divergent, and it will have very multiple viewpoints. And I think it will be very hard, rather than hard. It will be a very rewarding exercise to see what these narratives mean in a society. What does it talk about? What do all these streaming platforms mean? What do these fan fiction mean? What do these memes mean? So it is not the story of our culture, or the so-called cultural story cannot be hermetically sealed anymore. It cannot be hermetically sealed within a single medium or a single author. It is so diverse, and it is. And it is, for me, it's going to be very exciting, but it's also very challenging. It can be exhausting at times, because it is designed to be very distracting today. To us. How do you make something so distracting, to divorce the distraction to arrive at a meaning? I think that is what real research in popular culture will be about in the future. So, and also because, why do we have to do? Because we are all participants in it, and that is always a challenge for us. When we are participants, we're not, because earlier critiques were like that. So you observed it from a distance, and then you wrote it, you critiqued about it, but you are part of it, you're participating in it. So how do you research that? And that's why it's very exciting, and very exciting. And cultural value as such has never been innocent. That is another thing. Culture as a value, and cultural value is not a very innocent entity. It's always, at some level or every level, it is fraught with certain a political color to it. It's so imbricated with politicality to it, and you cannot dissociate it from there. So it is, and to end it, I would say popular culture is a very exciting field, simply because we study ourselves in it. So we, as somebody said, we are therapists. We are studying ourselves, more like a self-diagnosis that we do. And so what we consume, as well as how the society consumes it, through a mirror in which the society sees or shapes in its own image. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation, and I would like to thank Dr. Maria Preetha for, I hope I gave justice to it. Thank you so much for patiently listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your enlightening presentation. Your ideas have given us fresh perspective on the significance of popular culture in literary studies, especially Raymond Williams' question, who decides what was culture, then culture as a text.
Trisha, may I interrupt you? If there are any observation or questions, I would like to, if you want to talk about it, I would love to do that.
Okay, I'll ask ma'am. Especially the question, who decide what was culture, then culture is a text, that creates a curiosity to know, learn, and explore more about popular culture, ma'am. Thank you for that. The next session is discussion session. Knowledge becomes meaningful through dialogue and discussion. We shall now move to the interactive discussion session. Participants are requested to post their question in the chat box or raise their virtual hands. Our keynote speaker will be delighted to respond to your questions.
Sure, we need not restrict people. They can students, anyone can make their observations.
Thank you, Saranya, for having taken us through the critical, critical, what you call labyrinth. Telling us what is culture. When this topic was suggested, I was thinking of my own time when jeans or Elvis Presley. All of these things, they were derided fully at that one. The jeans we wear, okay, and any new hairstyle, even in our own time, those hippie modes, right? Today we call it fashion. Everybody is studying, going in for hairdressing, makeup. So many facial artists, and see, it was never. Even those job opportunities, those were derided, looked down on. Today, and I used to wonder, are we going? I was very little then. How are we going to live through all these things? And we still, because I didn't prefer certain fashions. We should be, only then will we be fashionable, only if we do all that. Today with torn jeans, as elders, we can't tolerate it with all what that they called it, gunshot jeans and other kinds of things. But today we are all, we all have to make do with this. One part of society is like that. We just tolerate. We're not even supposed to deride. So with popular culture, being like that, I think we'll all have to accommodate ourselves and just find our places in it. Thank you for putting that in perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Dr. Saranya, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
May I come? So I'm just wondering if, giving the theme as popular culture and literature, whether we should have just had it only as popular culture. That's question one.
I didn't get you.
Popular, just the theme for this year.
Huh.
Could we have actually had it only as popular culture and not popular culture and literature?
I was actually wondering about that.
Literariness.
Yeah.
What is literary? What is not literary?
No, that's the whole point actually. Literariness itself is contested in popular culture. So I was actually wondering about that. Like popular culture in itself would have sufficed because it includes literature in itself. Culture includes literature. All the pulp fiction and everything would come under it really. So that's why it's it incorporates or it encompasses the entire gamut of all the cultural activities. So and I think
some guardrails.
That guardrail is exactly what popular culture is trying to do away with. That guardrail is exactly what, but the topics you've chosen, they're wonderful. They're so good. I didn't focus on the new genre of fiction, new genre of writing and reading that has come, graphic novels, even on OTT platforms, ma'am. See, now we had the way we are viewing itself is changing now. We had teleserials which ran for 40 minutes, 1 hour. Now we have 5 minutes. It's called Kutti Kada app. So they are just 5 minutes. And what does it tell about our society? So what does it tell about our attention span? What does it tell about our youth? There's so much in it really. So our way of reading has changed now. That those terribly tiny. You have fiction on Threads now. Threads is this platform, right? Like your Twitter. You have fiction on that. So but then this is something I was looking at it, but it's okay. I think. I think
the next question is: are we? Obviously, we're doing away, or we are ignoring the rule book. Thou shalt not.
Yeah.
What? And like T.S. Eliot telling you, tradition is there.
Yeah.
You have
I don't think I'm able to hear you. Is everyone able to hear her?
Maybe I need to switch off the fan.
No, can you hear me? Yes, ma'am. I think it's to do with the connection, I think. Yeah. It's a little wobbly, probably. Yes, ma'am. We're talking about Eliot, the traditional. Yes.
Yeah. Doing away with the rule book. That's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, how do we signpost appreciation? So when we were taught imagery, symbolism,
we
were given some criteria for appreciation of whether a film or whether it's a printed text. And that if it has all these attributes, it's a classic, it's a good piece of art. And even films, we say it's an art film, it's a popular film,
Yeah.
right? So these are just some observations. So how do you, when we have a course, on film review, we have a course on book review, we signpost, right? And then we get back to high culture, low culture, classic. So though we talk about doing away with the rule book,
I think no, we cannot do away with the rule book. I think the sort of qualitative function that was based on some given idea, I think that is contested now. Like if it has these, for example, once upon a time you had imageries and you had symbolisms, you had rhyme, meter, but then free verse did away with that. So I think new forms will emerge, and I think probably your rule books would change. Probably there would be a rule book, but we can't go by the old rule books.
Yeah,
So there has to be new rule books. No, new rule books would keep. You'll go by the playbook there. So you will have probably new rules. But that's the best part about this popular culture studies, ma'am. It keeps breaking its own rules. So it keeps breaking on its way and it keeps forming. So you have fan fiction, for example. Now that fan fiction has got so much of viewership. Now that has been made into a series. For example, this Twilight was a book which was published by, on the top of my head, I can think of this example, the Stephanie Meyer's book called Twilight, which is based upon some ridiculous ideas about humans and Dracula's, vampires coexisting. And then you had a fan fiction for that, which created and again, if you go by the old rule book, the grammar was terrible at it. I've read it. The language was not great, but it had such great viewership as well as readership because it touched something in them. So I think probably we need to understand that. So instead of qualitatively dismissing something as bad and good, we need to probably look at why something resonates with people and why something does not resonate with people. I think that would be the direction in which, or what does it tell about us as a society? I think that would probably the direction in which it is going. As far as your query on Eliot's tradition and individual talent, and Eliot was dead against this low culture, really, low art or low bro culture, really. It was much like Levi's, exactly, because he believed there is this intellectual group or intellectual. Okay, my voice is not clear. It keeps breaking. Is it clear now? Am I audible? Is it clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So they believe there is this intellectual elite which should be leading, right? Up until Eliot and Levi's, but that was what was broken by people like Raymond Williams, all the Marxist critics, and when Louis Althusser said these intellectual elites were the oppressive structures. Apparatus. They were the ideological, not oppressive structure. Ideological apparatus. This IPA he talks about, intellectual, apparatus, ideological apparatus that he talks about. So, to your question of what sort of a rule book, I think we will keep changing the rule book. Much like how we did not have rhyme and meter dismissed off after romantic poetry, Wordsworth was one of the biggest breakers of rule book, isn't it? So I think it will keep changing, and we need to keep finding it. And I think it's very, very fluid from now on. See, unlike in those days, ma'am, where you had a set way of looking at a text and that persisted for at least a century. But now we will be looking at something, we will be trying to understand or interpret a text, but that modality will keep changing rapidly. And then we need to keep up with that. That's why I said we have become multimodal people now. So we don't consume the text as we consumed earlier. So accordingly, the rule book will also be changing. So we need to keep digging up what this new rule is about, and that's it. So what ticks with people. So take Tamil Nadu politics is the best example. I kept thinking about it when you asked me to speak about popular culture, because what has worked, what had worked for 65 years, suddenly what has happened? So what made this change, and then how was it possible? You couldn't have imagined such. We did have actors coming, but it was from a very different dynamic. It had a very different dynamic about it. But what has changed? So all rule books have been changed. All the rules have seem to have gone. So I don't have any answer for that question.
Keep on talking. Just one thing.
Yeah.
Somewhere this thing of the post-truth, coming from where you're talking, and generally the post-truth, all that we learn about post-truth era, and popular culture somehow and then postmodernism, post-truth,
Definitely.
all these things either one leads to the other or they overlap somewhere.
Definitely. Definitely, they do. In fact, I would say postmodern is possibly the forerunner for setting such a trend, isn't it? Where it denies a singular truth. I think everything was set off, although we look at it as a very absurd and abstract idea, postmodernism. I think what started with Nietzsche and Derrida is what has set the ball rolling. So whatever we see happening today is probably because of that, because we don't confine ourselves to one truth anymore. Or as Trump says, alternate truth. So we really don't know what direction it might take, but it's very interesting to study that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Saranya, for that wonderful tracing of history of popular culture in literature. Yeah, so it was quite heartening to hear you speak. Just to continue with the discussion that we have been having, and you contemporaneized popular culture with the example of the recent state elections. What needs to be interrogated is to, how do we look at the politics of legitimization of the process of politics of legitimization of a particular culture as popular culture in the recent state elections. The more masses accept it as okay, this is the norm and today's norm, and therefore this needs to be revisited or maybe expanded to other states and to the central elections. Moreover, so instead of politicizing, acceptance is a major problem. So how do we reject it? By way of problematizing it, by way of challenging what has happened so far. So that is very crucial for us to impart.
Yes.
How do we question what has happened, right? It requires interrogation.
True,
and that's where the connection between literature and popular culture becomes more pertinent. So literature helps you to interrogate what is prevalent as popular culture, because even within the popular culture there is hierarchy. Some voices get to heard.
Very true.
Some, for instance, on Facebook, how many likes does one get and how many likes does another person does not get? How often my Insta reels are reposted and shared, right? So that matters and creates a lot of anxiety in individual, which even psychologists are studying today. Therefore, literature, as Maria Preethi ma'am was also asking whether it is appropriate to have popular culture alone as a topic or popular culture and literature. Literature always enables us to question the existing modes of production, cultural modes of production, and therefore it's always good for us to be reminded of that we as literary students, and not only as literature students but also as people who respond to and react as well as interrogate the cultures through literature, or even literature through culture.
That is very true, ma'am. Yeah, we do.
Shaping and reshaping. In fact, sometimes, at times, we tend to. Literature gains from culture, and more also, and another times, culture also gains from literature, through literature, because it gains recognition, for instance, right? Representation, all that is a part of literature, right?
True. So the reason why
Just
I
wanted
was
to
saying
observe.
that, yeah. Thank you so much. Now, I do agree with you, but what I felt was, but popular, it's such a vast term. The term pop is such a vast term. I always wondered, is not literature part of culture already? Because if you look at it as an act, it's subsumed under that, isn't it? So that's why I put it. But what you said was absolutely correct, ma'am. Because as I said earlier, a lot of humanities departments, English departments are shutting down across the world, and it's really worrisome because. As much as I hate Arnold, what he said was true. Literature does sustain us, and we need to tell our stories. So as simple as that, we need to tell our stories, and we need to keep questioning. We need to keep contesting, and literature has been doing that for years. So yes, I do agree with what you said, ma'am. So
see, about 10 years ago, when I was doing my research, I remember Minnie Krishnan.
Yes. Yeah.
And she said, she was talking about literature with the capital L. This was about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
2007, or 20 years ago. Okay, so literature with the capital L and literature with the
small L. Yeah, I think it also mattered in terms of translation. So remember, I think Sujit Mukherjee talks about it. Translation, English with a capital E and English with a small e. So when we're talking about Englishes, so what qualifies as the English and the English that we speak? Something very similar to that idea.
Coming back to literariness, I don't know whether we can ever do away with that. I kind of tend to agree with Alamelu that wow factor, and then can we do away with the idea of a classic? Can we do away with the idea of what is literary? What is what remains? So something is popular at one point of time. As you said, Shakespeare was not, was popular, and there may be some texts, like for example, a few years ago, I remember someone being dismissive of Chetan Bhagat's writing, fiction.
Yeah.
But so it takes time, something for the value of something to be acknowledged. This is good writing. This is relevant writing. This is writing which connects with people. There was a time when you felt ashamed to say that you read Chetan Bhagat or something like that.
True.
Kind of thing would be created.
Yeah. I think even 10 years ago, Chetan Bhagat was already done. I mean, was used as a PhD topic. But I know a person who. So it has been. I mean, in other universities, maybe perhaps not Madras University, or maybe the guides who did not. There should have been somebody at some point who broke that barrier and said, "Go ahead and do it." Otherwise,
I think those are intertwined questions. After some point of time, something becomes a classic, but what is worth researching, or what is worth talking about, what is worth discussing? I think popular culture or starting the cultural studies, the whole project of cultural studies was to question who decides that. How do we decide that really? So, and whose rule book are we following?
And it's also about the learner, Saranya. I read this John Story book, Introduction to Cultural Studies, and he talks about a different kind of learner coming into the class, into the university. It's not the aristocrats, children of aristocrats, but working class people coming into the university. So they had to change the text, the text that we taught.
That is true.
So, see, these shifts will be there, and the democratization of education, I think it comes a lot back to who the learner is and what the learner requires.
That's again the same question, ma'am. Who decides it? So once aristocrats decided it, now the other class decides
So yeah,
it.
the learner decides. Now it's
Exactly. Who decides it? As simple as that.
Even the political people decide certain things. I mean, certain texts went out of the syllabus because of that. Amartya Sen was on our syllabus, the second one. That was all about, they said it was all about BJP bashing, and that was, the whole syllabus was scrapped, Madras University. Now what we have is different.
I think we are confusing language ability with representation over here. Certain texts are scrapped out because the learners find it difficult to learn. But I think we are talking
Political.
ideology.
ideology.
Words,
Okay,
yes,
okay,
ideology.
Ideology. All right.
Ideologies were
Yeah,
there
Ramanujan's
was always better.
300 Ramayanas was taken out of Delhi University syllabus, and
Yeah, actually, I was working at one of the colleges in Delhi University before moving to Chennai.
okay.
The whole Delhi University went to protest.
I know.
Yeah, it was a,
Yes.
not only that, even Draupadi, by
Maheswari Devi. Yeah.
story, just because the story bears the name of Draupadi.
Mm-hmm. True.
Yeah, and also, but names every woman who undergoes struggle as Draupadi, and they don't see it as the state did not see it as a true culture. They saw it as humiliation to a particular religion. You know?
Same. I remember same.
Itself is very, I mean, it's activist, no? That maybe that is one of the reasons why they took Draupadi.
I do remember in recent times a film. One of the characters' name was Sita. I forget the name of the film, and they had asked them to remove. I don't know. It was banned or
Yeah, there was some
something to do with Sita. And also at times we're also scared, I think, of scared of this popular culture. Look at the recent event, ma'am, of Sutlej. That is the movie Sutlej is banned now from
Yes,
OTT.
now.
It's based on this Punjabi activist. So it's just a film. We look at it as just as a film, but there's so much of political implication to it.
Many of the Kerala stories all oriented towards some kind of ideology.
So what is considered as a popular culture media?
That I'm telling you, it could have just been a story, but because of the political ideology behind it, the people rise to it.
Yes.
But one thing, today all are critics. Everybody, by the moment a film comes up, everybody is up and in arms against certain words, certain things projected there. So that is that's also an aspect of popular culture. This defending certain things and criticizing certain things. Also a part of this culture, I think. Earlier, we would never dare to come up in arms against what is there. Whoever is ruling, right? They were the ones to decide. Today, it's not like that. It's the people's will. Everything is popular.
Yes. I think Dr. Shakti Priya has commented here. So I'll just read out. I just want to share my observation. We all know language is arbitrary, but I came to know that culture is also arbitrary. Yes, definitely. That's what most of the Marxist critics have been trying to tell us, that what we call as culture is not something innate or inherent. It's all constructed. It's not natural. Like recently the what was that? Anandiben Patel, the governor of Uttar Pradesh, he made a comment in convocation stating that before becoming IAS officers, you women should become expert mothers. Becoming like, who constructed this idea that women should be expert mothers? Really, it's all a construct. This motherhood. What's her name? I forgot her name. Oh God, what's her name? That feminist, very famous writer. She talks about how we're all forced to be mothers. That's what she says. So
Arundhati Roy.
That's not from her book. Here Comes Mama. Oh, what's her name? There Goes Mary. Here Comes Mary.
Adrian,
Mary. I forgot the name.
Adrian Rich, ma'am.
Sorry.
Adrian Rich.
No. This is not Adrian Rich's book. Adrian Rich also speaks about it. I forget the name of that. Something of motherhood. She talks about it. I don't know. It's a brilliant book, really. And she talks about how this is again an ideology, right? Very, what they call as interpolation, right? So we are made to believe that. Okay, so Anandiben Patel says that we need to be expert mothers. So if you were a reader of popular culture, you'll take that as a text and understand it as how patriarchal norms or patriarchal ideas are hegemonically kept, re-established again and again. So that particular speech is a text, and when it went viral, that becomes a text.
So I think we'll wrap up.
Yes.
So I think as teachers, we welcome ideas, thoughts which are liberating.
True.
So whatever name that comes under, whether it comes under post-colonial or post-modern or post-truth or pop culture, actually we want for our students to be able to have the power to choose. If you're referring to motherhood, it's nice to see that nowadays people can choose not to be mothers, not to not to have giving birth imposed on them. So like that, times are changing and boundaries are being pushed, and we need to have, as she says, this porosity that way, and have all this fluidity so that change can come, change in ways of thinking, ways of seeing. And there's no one gospel, absolute truth about anything. So doing away with absolutes is also helping us. Shall we say, Mahalakshmi, you want to present the vote of thanks?
Yeah.
You ready?
I just remembered the name. It's Lou Sirigere, On Motherhood. That's the name of the book.
Oh.
Yeah, Lou Sirigere. Yeah, suddenly I remembered. Because I know it is something to do with light, iridescent, irigere. That's how I remembered her name. It's Lou
How do you spell
Sirigere.
it?
LuCeririGary. Lou Sirigere. On Motherhood. That's the name of the book. Let me check the spelling. I think it's correct. Lou Sirigere. Yeah, On Motherhood. Yeah. I was also thinking about the new genres of writing, manga. I think I saw a topic on manga art. It was so fascinating. I think I'll be attending all the sessions, ma'am. I'm so interested. You've got me hooked, really.
Professor Padma gave us that topic. She gave us almost half the topics here.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
Shanmuga Priya, her expertise.
Yeah. And manga, because what was dismissed as comics or cartoons, now it's one of the most sought after genre. Like in India, we have what was the book's name? Amrita Patil's Kari. So it's a brilliant book. It changes about queer identities, through exploring through a very different medium altogether. So yeah, chick lit literature. There's also crick lit literature, because India's fascination with cricket.
Mahalakshmi wanted to put the topics on the screen, so she's presenting it to the viewers.
All right.
We carry on, Mahalakshmi.
Thank you, ma'am, for patiently answering the question, and thanks to all for making this session lively and interactive. As we come to the conclusion of this inaugural program, it is time to express our gratitude to everyone who made today's event meaningful. I now invite Ms. S. Mahalakshmi to deliver the vote of thanks.
Warm greetings to everyone. As we come to the close of this memorable inauguration of the Fortnightly online symposia of the Tandem Research Club for the academic year 2026 to 27, it is my privilege to propose the formal vote of thanks. First and foremost, I express my heartfelt gratitude to our respected principal, Dr. B. Maheswari ma'am, for gracing this occasion with her presence and her inspiring address. Our words of encouragement and unwavering support continue to motivate us in our academic and research pursuits. I extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Preethi Srinivasan, Associate Professor and Head, PG and Research Department of English, for a warm welcome address and for constant guidance and encouragement in organizing this academic endeavor. I would also like to express our profound gratitude to our esteemed patrons and distinguished guests, Dr. R.Sreelatha, Dr. Samuel Rufus, Dr. Debashri Dattaria, Dr. Felicita Mary, and Dr. B. Alamelu for their insightful felicitations and inspiring words. Your valuable presence has greatly enriched today's program. Our special thanks to our keynote speaker, Dr. Saranya J, for delivering such an enlightening and thought-provoking address on popular culture and literature. Your scholarly insights have inspired us to explore this fascinating field with greater curiosity and critical understanding. I also extend my sincere appreciation to all the faculty members, research scholars, students, and participants who joined us today. Your enthusiastic presence and active participation have made this inauguration truly meaningful and successful. My heartfelt thanks to go to the organizing committee, the members of the Tandem Research Club, the technical team, and everyone who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the smooth conduct of today's program. As we embark on this academic journey together, I invite each one of you to participate actively in the forthcoming symposium sessions. I am confident that this year's series will provide enriching opportunities for learning, collaboration, and meaningful academic dialogue. Once again, thank you all for your valuable time, encouragement, and support. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for expressing a heartfelt gratitude to everyone who contributed to the success of this program. With this, we come to the end of the inauguration of the fortnightly online symposia on the In Tandem Research Club for the academic year 2026-2027. On behalf of the PG and Research Department of English, Queen's College, I thank all our respected dignitaries, faculty members, research scholars, students, and participants for joining us this evening. We look forward to your enthusiastic participation in all the upcoming sessions of In Tandem. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alamelu. Thank you.